Thank you so much for your time.
See, Bill 3 codified the council, your actions. It was always ag until Bill 3 passed. Up until such time, the failure was to not map and identify that property.
People were telling me when I was telling them that I was going to come here and testify this morning, why bother? Why waste my time? Why take my grandsons out of school to testify when they felt that it was already a done deal, that the dotted lines had all been signed, and the testimony of us didn't really matter. And I had to tell them, because I believe in the system. Because I believe in the system. So I'm going to tell you right now, you look long and hard before you make that final vote. And you think to yourself, do I want my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren looking back and saying, I took that land where that pueo flew, and I have seen the pueo at night. And I turned it into this concrete with a few little areas in there of green. You cannot eat concrete.
Now, when Laura Thielen was hired in 2011 to map it, she said it would be mapped within a year. She left office, it's been 4 years later, and it's still not mapped, and that was done by design.
It'd be likely that we wouldn't identify IAL within the urban growth boundary, such as Ho'opili, because, you know, we're considering our own processes of the general plan and the EVA development plan, and how those plans came about and how they are continuously updated with public input. And that's where we're going to have growth within those boundaries in order to save ag lands and other lands outside of those boundaries.
Okay. Councilmember Kobayashi.
Can I move to amend the resolution just to say that, asking that as they're doing the mapping, whoever they contract with, at least recognize productivity, because the whole basis of this resolution is not, any kind of stuff that is before the LUC, but mainly to push for sustainability for our not just our county, but our state. So can we amend this to say, to ask that as they're doing their mapping, that they recognize productivity? I think they also have to recognize availability of water. So if we have places where we have A lands and water, and there's productivity, then that should be recognized as they're doing their mapping.
As you're the chief introducer of the resolution, Councilmember Kobayashi, if you'd like to propose that amendment,
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Vice Chair, you okay with that?
I don't have any problem.
Okay. We'll go ahead and amend the resolution then accordingly. Councilmember Berg, any
Quick
statement?
comment? Thank you. And I think it's important to hear that when we knowingly know we can get 4 crops out of productive ag lands, and to say that, to sacrifice that, so somewhere else where you can get 2 crops a year. Thank you for your amendment.
Councilmember Kobayashi.
Can I just add that, I'm sorry this became such a political and involving the 2 cases before LUC, because this was at the request of a group of farmers, and some of them from the neighbor islands, who are concerned about sustainability and concerned about food production, and that was the whole basis of this resolution. Thank you.
Councilmember Kobayashi, could you just please state your amendment again, if you would?
The amendment to, as they're doing their mapping, that they consider not just the availability of water and the other criteria, but that they recognize the productivity of lands that are classified as A lands as they're doing their mapping. That they recognize the A lands and the productivity of those lands.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
if it's Class A, identified Class A ag land, but it's in the urban growth boundary, we're not gonna look at it. Because
Right.
we've heard this discussion that they're gonna omit urban growth boundary
Right,
territory.
so if they would recognize the lands that are A
Regardless.
lands with productivity that are in the urban growth boundary, that at least they be recognized.
So it's regardless of any urban growth boundary.
Right. If they're A lands and have productivity.
Thank you for that clarity.
The Constitution refers to prime agricultural lands, which includes both A and B. So
Okay.
if you just say A, that might,
So prime rather than A and B.
Resolution 12-23, CD1 be reported out for adoption.
Had the Ho'opili property been mapped and identified, which was the council's wish, 9-0, map it, you would know. Again, here's the failure count too. That property has to be mapped for you to dispose of. That's the failure.
We would like to admit that the quail owl is there in the gulches next to the property of Ho'opili that does fly over Ho'opili. I've witnessed it myself under oath, under penalty of perjury, and as a Hawaiian cultural practitioner, I know 6 breeding pairs of quail owl in that gulch, and that's Kalohi Gulch. So that is cause of standing of the
Part of the what's called Lena Aka'uhane. It's a spiritual weeping place, which the Federal Transit Administration, HART, and FDA have all officially recognized as a national register site. That could go on the national register, so it's an ancient spiritual site. The Pueo is a very important part of that, and we believe that the period at the time of the supermoon was a sign for all of us that it was trying to tell us, hey, I'm trying to survive here. I live in this land and my habitat's being destroyed.
Something that Native Hawaiians live by, and I want to close with this, is Olelo No'eau says, "Hel ikaina e kawa ke kanaka." The land is chief, mankind is its servant.
Please summarize, please. I'll summarize. We're doing nothing but sitting on the freeway now. That is our lives, period. And especially, please, commissioners, the folks from the Outer Islands need to understand that. This is our life. We plan around the traffic.
Thank you, Ms. Gannon.
Thank you
Any
for the opportunity.
That east-west connector road, if not built first, according to the Ever Roadway Connectivity Study, which I paid taxes for in 2009, its finding says if you don't build that road first, Renton Road becomes an arterial road by default. It's an historic road. It was never meant to serve as an arterial road, and you by design are going to make it such, knowingly and willingly causing harm. There's 4 schools on that road. You can't widen it. There's no relief that you can do other than build the east-west connector road first, of which will, my understanding, I've hit up Senator Menor, Councilmember Menor. He won't answer. A month gone unabated. When will the developer have this road open to the public? He doesn't know. Wow.
But we do have potential as long as our agriculture land is not rezoned for urban development.
Any questions for the
People were telling me when I was telling them that I was going to come here and testify this morning, why bother? Why waste my time? Why take my grandsons out of school to testify when they felt that it was already a done deal, that the dotted lines had all been signed, and the testimony of us didn't really matter? And I had to tell them because I believe in the system.
represents Unite Here Local 5, 11,000 members. We do not support development on prime agricultural land, and we don't support housing development projects that do not fully meet the needs of our island's hardworking families. If Ho'opili is built, I won't be able to do this again. I won't be on a hayride looking out and seeing the sky and all the growing crops and all those happy people laughing with their families. I'll see buildings and no one will be laughing that remembers what was once there.
We're all in this together, so it doesn't matter. Chair, I'd like to bring to your attention that I'm in opposition to this measure on the basis and grounds that it's a social injustice. I believe there may be people in this room who participated in the late 70s in a constitutional convention for this very state, of which it was to be the city and county of Honolulu, together with all counties in the state, shall map and identify their important agricultural land, because the people in the state of Hawaii felt an urgency in the 70s of such magnitude and crisis that everything here before you today to codify taking ag lands, the agenda today says it's ag lands. It doesn't take a ruling of the LUC. It says ag lands because you codify such. So if we take the state constitution and we take that the county shall map and identify its important ag lands, you cannot, in good faith, advance this measure until you have completed the exercise. The state constitution usurps your Oahu General Plan. The urban growth boundary, as you know, this council passed Resolution 11-23, Committee Draft 1, in the year 2012. Prior to such, what I'm getting at, is Councilwoman Kobayashi introduced a measure to follow up on that mandate of the Constitution to hire an agricultural liaison to map and identify. You shall. And it took 3 decades for the state to figure out who's going to pay for this exercise. So when we finally found out the county's got the money and they hire somebody, and it was Laura Thieland, she said, and I quote, "I can do this within a year," and that was in 2011. Point. Had this property of D.R. Horton's Ho'opili purchased, because they knew when they bought the land from the state of James Campbell, that the state constitution was in play. They knew at the time of the deed of contract of transfer to the Bureau of Land Conveyance that the state constitution will always trump them today. Because today, in good faith, if that ag liaison were to map and identify that property thereof, it would be classified as important agricultural lands and then inventoried for our governor to then put in his bank, where the governor says, in this bank over here, we're going to protect and preserve, and wanted to increase that inventory of land. So, Chair and members, if you connect the dots, this is not anti-development, anti-affordable housing, anti-anything. It's pro. Pro the people, follow through. Social justice is that if any attorney were to read the document of how we got to where we are today, you cannot advance this until you've mapped the land. And why? Because if it were mapped and identified, we'd get the results that HART has provided, numbers that which are false. 5 experts graded this property for HART, and the federal government says if it has a threshold, you can't develop on the land because the federal government protects ag land that we eat off of. The federal government says it's so important. So important. So all of a sudden, HART said this land is not valuable. And if you folks here actually mapped it, you could prove HART gave falsified numbers, and the other 4 numbers were quantified to be legitimate. So, in good faith, everybody here, you can put on record, don't do it, vote no, do the right thing. The people from 1978 from that con are expecting you to follow through. Don't breach that trust. Social justice, follow through. Mahalo.
Would it make you happy to see buildings instead of what I see? My grandma took us to the Sweet Onion Festival, and we got to go on a hayride and see and feel the farmland when we put our hands in the dirt, and it was so much fun. Feeling the dirt and picking onions and finding beans and seeing corn on the stalk and smelling fresh vegetables and the dirt they grow in. And then I felt sad because if Ho'opili is built, this won't be there.